The galaxy was vast, almost infinite, but it wasn't silent. Ships buzzed between stars, colonies thrived on distant planets, and humanity had spread its roots far beyond Earth. On Eridanus Prime, a bustling hub of trade and technology, orbiting a red dwarf star, life moved at a steady pace. The spaceport was alive with activity workers loading cargo onto freighters, engineers repairing ships, and traders haggling over prices in crowded markets. It was just another day for most people, but for Ethan Cole, something felt off. Ethan was an engineer aboard the Aurora, a deep space exploration vessel docked at the station. He wasn't one to dwell on feelings, but today, unease lingered in the back of his mind. It started when he received a message from Earth Command early that morning. Normally, updates from Earth were routine mission briefings, supply requests, or congratulatory messages for successful operations. But this time, the tone was different. The message was short, almost abrupt. Communication with Earth has ceased. Investigate further. At first, Ethan dismissed it as a technical glitch. Space was unpredictable, after all. Solar flares could disrupt signals, equipment malfunctioned, and sometimes messages got delayed by days. He shrugged it off and went about his duties, inspecting the Aurora systems before their next departure. But as hours passed, rumors began spreading across the station. Other ships had reported similar issues: no response from Earth, no broadcasts, nothing. Even automated satellites orbiting the planet were silent. By evening, the unease turned into outright concern. In the mess hall of the Aurora, Ethan sat with his crewmates, picking at a tray of rehydrated stew. Round him, conversations buzzed. With speculation, "Do you think it's war?" asked Mia Torres, the ship's medic. Her dark hair was tied back in a loose ponytail, and her usually calm demeanor seemed shaken. Maybe someone attacked Earth. "No way," replied Ryan Fletcher, the pilot. His cocky grin masked his worry. "Earth's got the best defenses in the galaxy. If anyone tried something, we'd know about it." "Then what is it?" Mia pressed. "Why isn't anyone talking to us?" Ethan leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. "It's not just us. Everyone's cut off. There's no signals, no responses, not even static. It's like they're gone. Gone." Ryan raised an eyebrow. "You mean everyone?" "Billions of people don't just vanish. That's exactly why I'm worried," Ethan said quietly. "Whatever happened, it's big." The conversation shifted as others joined in, throwing out theories ranging from natural disasters to alien invasions. But none of them satisfied Ethan's growing sense of dread. Something didn't add up. Earth wasn't just any planet. It was the heart of human civilization, home to billions, protected by layers of security and technology. For it to go completely silent without warning defied logic. Later that night, able to sleep, Ethan wandered to the observation deck. Through the large viewport, he stared out at the stars, searching for answers in the endless expanse of space. The silence from Earth gnawed at him, a void more unsettling than anything he'd faced before. He thought about his family, still living on the blue-green world now shrouded in mystery. Were they safe? Had they been taken? Or worse? His thoughts were interrupted by the sound of footsteps behind him. Turning, he saw Laura Hayes, the captain of the Aurora. She was a tall woman, with sharp features and an air of authority that commanded respect. Despite her stern appearance, she carried herself with quiet empathy, always aware of her crew's well-being. "Couldn't sleep either?" she asked, joining him at the window. "Not really," Ethan admitted. "I keep thinking about my parents. They're back on Earth. What if something happened to them?" Laura placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "We don't know anything yet. Panic won't help anyone. But doesn't it bother you?" Ethan asked. "How can an entire planet just disappear?" "It bothers me," Laura said firmly. "And that's why we've been ordered to investigate. We leave tomorrow." Ethan nodded, feeling a mix of relief and apprehension. At least they weren't sitting idly while questions swirled unanswered. Still, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into something far bigger and far scarier than they realized. The next morning, preparations for departure were underway. The Aurora hummed with energy as the crew loaded supplies, checked systems, and plotted a course for Earth's solar system. Ethan focused on his work, losing himself in the familiar rhythm of diagnostics and repairs. Each task helped push away the nagging doubts creeping into his mind. As they launched from Eridanus Prime, the enormity of their mission hit Ethan like a punch to the gut. The ship's engines roared to life, propelling them toward the unknown. Outside the cockpit windows, the stars stretched into streaks of light as they entered hyperspace. For the first time in his career, Ethan felt truly afraid. Days passed in relative silence as they traveled. The crew monitored communications channels, hoping for some sign of life from Earth. But the void remained unbroken. When they finally reached the edge of Earth's solar system, tension aboard the ship was palpable. Through the viewport, Earth loomed in the distance, a bright blue marble suspended against the blackness of space. At first glance, everything seemed normal. Clouds drifted lazily across continents, oceans sparkled under sunlight, and polar ice caps gleamed white. But as they drew closer, the illusion shattered. "There's no traffic," Mia observed, frowning at her console. "No orbital stations, no satellites. It's like... nobody's there." Ryan adjusted the scanners, double-checking the readings. "She's right. All artificial structures are offline. No power signatures, no emissions. Nothing." Ethan felt a chill run down his spine. It wasn't just a communication blackout. It was as if humanity had vanished entirely. Captain Hayes gave the order to enter Earth's atmosphere. As the Aurora descended, the view outside the windows became increasingly surreal. Cities stood intact, their skyscrapers reaching toward the sky, but there were no lights, no movement. Streets lay empty, cars abandoned mid-journey. Parks were overgrown with weeds, and nature had begun reclaiming the land. They landed near New York City. Once a bustling metropolis teeming with life, now it was a ghost town. Stepping onto the surface, Ethan felt a profound sense of wrongness. The air smelled stale, tinged with decay. Buildings loomed like tombstones, their windows dark and hollow. Inside offices and apartments, personal belongings lay scattered, books open on desks, meals left uneaten, beds unmade. It was as though everyone had simply disappeared in an instant. "This doesn't make any sense," Mia murmured, examining a child's toy lying forgotten on the sidewalk. What could do this? A virus? Some kind of weapon? "If it was biological, we'd see bodies," Ryan pointed out. "This looks more like ... evacuation." "But who evacuates a whole planet without leaving a trace?" Ethan asked. "And why?" Their search led them to a government facility buried beneath the city. Inside, they found rows of computers and monitors, all powered down. Files and documents were strewn across desks, as if workers had fled in a hurry. Ethan picked up a folder labeled Project Genesis and flipped through its contents. Most of it was technical jargon he didn't understand, but one phrase caught his eye. Unstable phenomena detected. Before he could process what he'd read, Claire Bennett's voice crackled over the comms. Back on the Aurora, she had been analyzing soil samples collected during their initial sweep. Her tone was urgent. "Ethan, you need to see this," she said. "There's something in the ground, crystalline structures emitting electromagnetic pulses. Whatever they are, they're not natural." Ethan glanced at the folder in his hands, then back at the deserted city around him. Pieces of the puzzle were starting to come together, but the picture they formed was anything but clear. One thing was certain: Earth's silence wasn't random. Something or someone had caused it. Whatever it wasn't done yet. The silence of Earth weighed heavily on the crew of the Aurora. As they explored the abandoned streets of New York City, every step felt like walking through a graveyard. The air was thick with an eerie stillness, broken only by the occasional rustle of wind weaving through empty buildings. Ethan Cole led the team cautiously, his eyes scanning for anything that might explain the planet's sudden emptiness. Behind him, Mia Torres carried a medical scanner, while Ryan Fletcher kept watch with a weapon drawn, though neither knew what they were looking for or what they might find. Inside a crumbling office building, Ethan noticed something odd. A desk calendar marked the date 3 weeks earlier, but everything else suggested time had stopped much more recently. Papers fluttered across the floor, and coffee cups sat half full, their contents dried into crusty rings. It was as if life had been interrupted mid-moment. The scene repeated itself everywhere they went homes, left in disarray. Cars abandoned on highways, stores filled with untouched goods. Whatever happened here wasn't gradual, it was instantaneous. Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Every shadow seemed to shift just out of sight, and every creak of settling metal made him flinch. He tried to focus on the task at hand, but his mind raced with questions. Could billions of people vanish without a trace? Was this some kind of alien attack? Or had humanity done this to itself? Their search eventually led them to an underground facility buried deep beneath the city. The entrance was hidden behind layers of concrete and steel, designed to withstand even nuclear blasts. Using tools from the Aurora, they managed to pry open the heavy doors and descend into darkness. The air inside smelled stale, and the walls were lined with rusting pipes and flickering emergency lights. At the end of a long corridor, they found a control room filled with dusty monitors and rows of servers. Ryan immediately set to work powering up the equipment, his fingers flying over the keyboards. If anyone left clues, they'd be here, he muttered, typing furiously. After a few minutes, the screens flickered to life, displaying lines of encrypted data. Ethan recognized some of the symbols that matched the folder he'd found earlier, labeled Project Genesis. "What is all this?" Mia asked, peering over Ryan's shoulder. "Don't know yet," Ryan replied. "But I'm guessing it's important." While Ryan worked, Ethan wandered deeper into the facility. In one corner, he discovered a storage room filled with crates marked experimental materials. Curious, he pried one open and found it packed with strange crystals, smooth, translucent, and glowing faintly. They reminded him of the structures Claire had mentioned earlier, the ones emitting electromagnetic pulses. Carefully, he took a sample and slipped it into his pocket. Back in the control room, Ryan let out a triumphant shout. "Got it. Found some logs." He turned the screen toward Ethan and Mia. The text scrolled rapidly, detailing experiments involving exotic matter and energy manipulation. According to the logs, Project Genesis aimed to harness unlimited power by tapping into dimensions beyond normal spacetime. The project showed promise at first, but then things went wrong. "Listen to this," Ryan read aloud. Day 47. Unstable phenomena detected near reactor core. Energy readings exceed predicted thresholds. Further testing required. And then, Day 50. Containment breach imminent. Evacuation protocols initiated. Mia frowned. So they knew something bad was going to happen. Why didn't they shut it down? Maybe they couldn't, Ethan said grimly. Or maybe they thought they could fix it. Before they could discuss further, Claire's voice crackled over their coms. She sounded breathless, almost panicked. "Ethan, you need to hear this. I've analyzed those soil samples more thoroughly, and, well, it's not good. The crystals aren't just emitting pulses, they're resonating with something massive. Something near Earth's moon." Ethan's stomach tightened. "What do you mean, massive?" "I don't know exactly," Claire admitted. "But whatever it is, it's big, and it's artificial. You should check it out." Captain Hayes agreed. With Earth yielding few answers, the Aurora would divert to the moon. The journey wouldn't take long, but the tension aboard the ship grew heavier with each passing hour. As they approached, the crew gathered in the cockpit, staring out at the desolate surface below. At first glance, it looked unchanged gray dust, stretching endlessly under a black sky. But when they zoomed in on the coordinates Claire provided, they saw something that made their blood run cold. Embedded in the moon's surface was a structure unlike anything humanity had ever built. Towering spires twisted upward like frozen. Lightning bolts glowing faintly with an otherworldly light. Its design was intricate yet chaotic, as if it defied the laws of physics. Sensors picked up low-frequency vibrations emanating from within, pulsing rhythmically like a heartbeat. "We're landing," Captain Hayes announced. Her voice was steady, but her knuckles whitened as she gripped the controls. Once on the surface, the team suited up and ventured toward the structure. Up close, it was even stranger than it appeared from orbit. The material seemed alive, shifting subtly under their touch. Glyphs etched into its surface glowed softly, responding to their presence. Ethan reached out tentatively, running his gloved fingers along the carvings. They felt warm, almost inviting. "This place gives me the creeps," Ryan muttered, keeping his weapon trained on the entrance. "You're not alone," Mia said, clutching her scanner tightly. Inside, the structure opened into a vast chamber illuminated by bioluminescent patterns dancing across the walls. The air hummed with energy, making their suit systems buzz faintly. In the center of the room stood a pedestal-like formation, surrounded by floating shards of crystal similar to the ones Ethan had collected on Earth. As they approached, the shards began to spin slowly, casting prismatic beams of light around the chamber. Suddenly, Alex Rivera, another member of the team, stumbled forward, clutching his head. His face contorted in pain, and he dropped to his knees. "It's too loud," he gasped. "They're talking to me." "Who's talking to you?" Ethan demanded, kneeling beside him. Alex didn't answer. Instead, his eyes glazed over, and he began muttering incoherently. Fragments of words spilled from his lips, some in languages none of them recognized, others distorted beyond comprehension. Then, without warning, his body convulsed and he collapsed onto the ground. Unconscious, Mia rushed to his side, checking his vitals. "He's alive, but barely. We need to get him back to the ship." As they carried Alex away, Ethan lingered for a moment, staring at the spinning crystals. There was something hypnotic about their movement, something that tugged at the edges of his mind. He wanted to stay longer, to understand what they were saying. But the urgency of Alex's condition forced him to follow the others. Back aboard the Aurora, Claire examined Alex carefully. His brain activity was erratic, spiking in ways she'd never seen before. "Whatever happened to him, it's linked to that structure," she said, "and those crystals. They're affecting him somehow." Ethan clenched his fists, frustration bubbling inside him. Every answer they uncovered only raised more questions. Or what had built the structure on the moon? What did the crystals mean? And most importantly, where had everyone on Earth gone? That night, as the ship orbited the moon, Ethan lay awake in his bunk, staring at the ceiling. The image of the glowing structure haunted him. Its pulsing light burned into his memory. He thought about Alex lying unconscious in the med bay and wondered if they'd made a mistake coming here. Were they digging too deep into secrets meant to stay buried? Or was there still hope for understanding and reversing what had happened to Earth? Now the truth remained elusive, hidden somewhere within the depths of the alien construct. But Ethan knew one thing for certain: the galaxy wasn't as empty as it seemed. Somewhere out there, forces far greater than humanity were watching and waiting. The Aurora hovered in orbit around the moon, its crew divided between fear and determination. Alex Rivera lay unconscious in the medbay, his condition worsening with each passing hour. The crystals from the alien structure seemed to have embedded themselves into his mind, their electromagnetic pulses resonating through his brain like a haunting melody. Claire Bennett worked tirelessly, her face illuminated by the glow of monitors as she analyzed every detail of his neural activity. But no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't pinpoint the source of the interference or how to stop it. Ethan Cole paced the narrow corridors of the ship, his thoughts racing. He replayed the events inside the structure over and over in his mind, the glowing glyphs, the spinning crystals, the way Alex had collapsed after touching them. Something about that place wasn't just alien. It felt alive, as if it were testing them, probing their intentions. The questions gnawed at him. What did it want? And why had it chosen Alex? Captain Laura Hayes called a meeting in the briefing room. The crew gathered around the table, their faces tense with exhaustion and unease. Ethan sat silently, staring at the holographic map of the moon projected in the center of the room. Ryan Fletcher tapped his fingers impatiently on the edge of the table, while Mia Torres fidgeted with a medical scanner, unable to sit still. "We need answers," Laura began, her voice firm but tinged with worry. "Whatever's happening to Alex is connected to that structure. If we don't figure out what it is fast, we risk losing him, and maybe more." "I've been studying those glyphs," Claire interjected, pulling up images on the screen. "They're not random patterns, or some kind of language, a very old one. I've cross-referenced them with ancient databases. and they match fragments of texts we found scattered across the galaxy. These symbols belong to a race called the Valith. The who? Ryan asked, raising an eyebrow. The Valith, Claire repeated. From what little we know, they existed long before humanity, long before most known civilizations. Legends describe them as custodians of balance, beings who monitored the development of intelligent life. If a species grew too powerful too quickly, the Valith intervened. Intervened how? Mia asked, her voice barely above a whisper. By removing them, Claire said bluntly, erasing entire populations if necessary. Their goal was to maintain harmony in the universe, preventing any one species from disrupting the cosmic order. Ethan leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. You're saying this structure belongs to the Valith? That they're responsible for Earth going silent? It's possible, Claire admitted. If Project Genesis triggered something like opening a rift or destabilizing dimensional barriers, it might have caught their attention. Crystals are part of them, extensions of their consciousness. They could be monitoring a sword judging us. The room fell silent as the weight of her words sank in. Humanity's fate rested in the hands of an ancient, incomprehensible force. For all their advancements, humans were still children playing with fire, unaware of the dangers lurking in the shadows. We can't leave Alex like this, Ethan finally said, breaking the silence. If the Valith are watching, we need to show them we're willing to learn, to understand. Maybe then they'll help us. But how do we talk to them? Mia asked. They don't exactly speak English. Claire hesitated, then nodded toward the screen. Through the glyphs. If we can decode more of their language, we might be able to communicate. It's risky, but it's our best shot. Laura considered this for a moment, then made her decision. We go back. This time we take precautions. No one goes near those crystals unless absolutely necessary. Our priority is Alexand finding out what the Valith want. The next day, the team returned to the lunar structure, armed with new equipment and a renewed sense of purpose. Ethan carried a portable translation device rigged by Claire, designed to interpret the glyphs in real time. As they stepped inside, the hum of energy grew louder, vibrating through their suits. The crystals spun faster now, their light casting eerie patterns on the walls. Claire activated the device, pointing it at the nearest wall. Lines of text appeared on the screen, fragmented but decipherable. This section talks about boundaries, she explained, her voice shaky. About consequences for crossing them. It's a warning. A warning for who? Ryan asked, glancing nervously at the crystals. For anyone, Claire replied. For us. For humanity. As they moved deeper into the chamber, the air thickened with tension. The floating shards of crystals seemed drawn to them, hovering closer as, if curious, Ethan reached out cautiously, letting one hover near his hand. Images flooded his mind, flashes of distant worlds, civilizations rising and falling, stars collapsing into darkness. He pulled back abruptly, gasping for breath. Did you see? Mia asked, gripping his arm. I don't know, Ethan admitted. It was like ... memories, but not ours. Before they could process what had happened, the ground beneath them trembled. A low rumble echoed through the chamber, growing louder until it became almost deafening. The crystals stopped spinning and aligned themselves in a perfect circle around the pedestal. Then, without warning, the structure came alive. Light erupted from the walls, bathing the room in blinding brilliance. Shapes began to form within the glow tall, shifting figures that seemed to stretch endlessly upward. Their forms were fluid, constantly changing, yet unmistakably intelligent. One of them stepped forward, its presence overwhelming. It didn't speak aloud, but its voice filled their minds, deep and resonant. You seek understanding, it said. Yet your actions defy comprehension. Ethan took a step forward, his heart pounding. We're not here to fight. We just want to know. What happened to Earth to our people? The figure paused, as if considering his words. Your kind sought power beyond measure. You tampered with forces you could not control. Balance was disrupted. Action was required. So you took them, Ethan. Pressed. Where are they? They exist, the Valith replied cryptically. But not as you know existence. They reside outside your perception, shielded from harm and from further destruction. Mia stepped forward, her voice trembling. "Can you bring them back? Please. Give us another chance." The Valeth hesitated, its form rippling like water. "Ouch. Implies choice. Choice implies trust. Do you possess such qualities?" "We do," Ethan insisted. "We've learned from our mistakes. Let us prove it." For a moment, the chamber fell silent. The Valeth studied them intently, its gaze piercing through their defenses. Then, slowly, it extended a tendril-like appendage toward Alex, who lay unconscious in Mia's arms. The crystals surrounding him pulsed brightly, and he let out a soft groan, his eyes fluttering open. "You will be tested," the Valeth declared. "Failure will result in permanence. Success may grant redemption." With that, the light dimmed, and the figures dissolved into nothingness. The chamber returned to its previous state, though the air felt heavier, charged with anticipation. Alex blinked, disoriented but alive. "What? Happened?" he croaked. "You were chosen," Ethan said softly, helping him to his feet. "And now, so are we." As they made their way back to the Aurora, the crew exchanged uneasy glances. Whatever test awaited them, they knew it wouldn't be easy. But for the first time since Earth went silent, there was hope not just for survival, but for reconciliation. The return to the Aurora was quiet, heavy with unspoken thoughts. Alex looked pale, but alert, his eyes darting around as if searching for something he couldn't quite name. Ethan helped him into a seat in the cockpit while Mia monitored his vitals, her hands trembling slightly despite her best efforts to stay calm. The encounter with the Valeth had left them all shaken, though none more so than Alex, who seemed caught between confusion and awe. "What did you see?" Ethan finally asked, breaking the silence. Alex hesitated, rubbing his temples as if trying to piece together fragments of a dream. "I don't know how to explain it," he said slowly. "Wasn't words, not really. More like ... feelings. Memories that weren't mine. I saw Earth, our cities, our people, but they were fading, dissolving into light. Then there was this voice, telling me we'd crossed a line." "A line?" Mia prompted gently. "Yeah," Alex nodded, his voice growing steadier. "It said we were playing with forces we didn't understand, that we'd pushed too far or too fast. But then it showed me something else, a place outside time where everyone from Earth is now. Safe, but ... different. Like echoes of who they used to be." Ethan exchanged a glance with Claire, who sat nearby, reviewing data on her tablet. Her expression was grim, her fingers moving quickly over the screen as she cross-referenced information. "It matches what the glyphs hinted at," she murmured. "The Valeth didn't destroy humanity, they displaced us, moved us somewhere beyond their reach." "But why?" Ryan demanded, pacing the cramped space. "If they wanted to punish us, why not just wipe us out? Why go through all this trouble?" "Because punishment isn't their goal," Claire replied. "They're custodians, remember? Their job is to maintain balance. Removing Earth's population wasn't an act of cruelty, it was protection. For us, and for the universe." "Does it make it okay?" Ryan snapped, his frustration boiling over. "We deserve answers, a second chance." "And maybe we'll get one," Laura Hayes interjected firmly, stepping into the room. Her presence commanded attention, her tone leaving no room for argument, but yelling about it won't help. We need to focus. "The Valeth gave us a test, one we have to pass if we want Earth back." "What kind of test?" Ethan asked, leaning forward. "That's the problem," Claire admitted. "They didn't say. The glyphs only mentioned proof of restraint, whatever that means." Ethan frowned, his mind racing. Restraint. It sounded simple enough, but given humanity's track record, proving such a thing wouldn't be easy. Earth's history was riddled with examples of greed, ambition, and recklessness, the very traits that had likely drawn the Valeth's attention in the first place. How could they demonstrate change when centuries of evidence suggested otherwise? "Start small," Laura said after a moment. "If the Valeth are watching, and I think they are, we need to show them we can act responsibly." With that, she outlined a plan. First, they would dismantle Project Genesis entirely, ensuring its technology couldn't fall into the wrong hands again. Second, they would share their findings about the Valeth with other colonies across the galaxy, urging caution and cooperation. Finally, they would leave the lunar structure untouched, respecting the boundaries set by its creators. It wasn't much, but it was a beginning. Over the next few days, the crew worked tirelessly to carry out Laura's orders. Ethan led the effort to neutralize Project Genesis, venturing back to Earth to locate and disable the reactor core buried beneath New York City. The facility was even eerier during the second visit, its darkened halls echoing with every step. As he approached the core chamber, he felt a chill creep up his spine. The air smelled metallic, tinged with ozone, and faint vibrations rattled the walls. Inside, the reactor loomed like a beast waiting to awaken. Its surface shimmered unnaturally, pulsing with faint waves of energy. Ethan knew better than to touch it directly. Instead, he planted charges around the perimeter, programming them to collapse the chamber without triggering another catastrophic event. When the explosives detonated, the ground shook violently, and a deafening roar filled the air. Dust billowed through the tunnels as the core imploded, sealing away whatever secrets it held. Back aboard the Aurora, Claire transmitted detailed reports about the Valeth, two key figures across human settlements. She included warnings about the dangers of unchecked technological advancement and urged leaders to prioritize ethical considerations over profit and power. Responses trickled in slowly, ranging from skepticism to reluctant agreement. Some colonies expressed fear, others defiance. But most agreed that humanity needed to tread carefully moving forward. Meanwhile, Alex began experiencing strange moments where he zoned out, muttering phrases in languages no one recognized. During these times, his body seemed to glow faintly, as if the crystal's influence lingered within him. Claire monitored him closely, recording every detail. But she couldn't determine whether the changes were harmful or transformative. All she knew was that Alex was becoming something more or less than human. One evening, as the crew gathered in the mess hall for dinner, Alex suddenly stood up, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. His eyes glowed faintly, and his voice took on an unnatural resonance. "They're here," he whispered, staring blankly ahead. "Who's here?" Ethan asked, rising from his seat. "The Valeth," Alex replied. "They've been watching, waiting, testing us." Before anyone could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. Sensors detected movement beneath the moon's surface, a massive energy signature. Rising rapidly toward the alien structure, the crew scrambled to their stations, hearts pounding as they prepared for the unknown. Through the cockpit windows, they watched in stunned silence as the ground near the structure split open, revealing a colossal entity emerging from below. Its form shifted constantly, resembling liquid metal rippling under starlight. Towering spires extended outward, glowing with an inner light that pulsed rhythmically. The sight was both beautiful and terrifying, a living monument to a power far beyond human comprehension. "It's communicating," Claire announced, her voice shaking as she analyzed the signals flooding their systems. "Not just with us, with Alex." Sure enough, Alex stepped toward the viewport, his body trembling. He raised a hand as if reaching out to the being, his lips moving silently. Then, without warning, he collapsed to the floor, unconscious once more. The Valeth's presence filled the ship, its telepathic voice resonating in their minds. "Your actions have been noted, your intentions weighed, yet doubt remains. What do you want from us?" Ethan shouted, unable to contain his frustration. "How do we prove ourselves?" The entity paused, its form rippling as if considering. His question? "Restraint requires sacrifice. Will you give up what you hold dear to preserve what must endure?" Before anyone could answer, the Valeth's form surged forward, engulfing Alex in a wave of light. His body dissolved into pure energy, merging with the entity. For a brief moment, his voice echoed in their minds, "We're ready." And then he was gone. Silence fell over the Aurora as the crew processed what had just happened. Alex was gone, sacrificed in a way none of them fully understood. Yet his final message lingered an assurance that humanity's fate still hung in the balance. "We have to keep going," Ethan said quietly, breaking the silence. "For Alex, for Earth." Laura nodded, her jaw set with determination. "Then we prepare. Whatever comes next, we face it together." As the ship turned back toward the alien structure, the crew braced themselves for what lay ahead. They had taken the first steps toward redemption, but the road was long, fraught with challenges they couldn't yet imagine. Humanity's survival depended not just on proving their worth, but on truly changing who they were. The Aurora hovered silently above the moon's surface, its crew staring out at the alien structure bathed in an eerie glow. The Valeth's towering form had receded back beneath the ground after taking Alex, leaving behind only faint traces of its presence. The air aboard the ship was thick with grief and uncertainty. For Ethan Cole, the weight of Alex's sacrifice pressed heavily on his chest. He had known Alex for years, his quiet determination, his dry sense of humor, his unwavering loyalty. To see him vanish like that, consumed by forces beyond comprehension, felt wrong. Yet there was no time to mourn. Whatever test the Valeth had set before them wasn't over yet. Captain Laura Hayes broke the silence first. "We need a plan," she said firmly, her voice cutting through the tension. "Alex gave us a message. We're ready. That has to mean something." "But what?" Mia Torres asked, her hands gripping the edge of the table in the briefing room. Her usually calm demeanor was frayed, her eyes red from lack of sleep. "What do they want from us? How can we prove we've changed?" Claire Bennett leaned forward, her tablet displaying fragments of data collected during their encounters with the Valeth. "Their language keeps emphasizing balance and restraint," she explained. "I think they're looking for proof that humanity is capable of self-control, of making hard choices even if it hurts." Ethan frowned, his mind racing. "Hard choices? Like dismantling Project Genesis? Sharing our findings with other colonies?" "Yes," Claire nodded. "Maybe they want us to show we're willing to let go of things we hold dear for the greater good." Ryan Fletcher scoffed, crossing his arms. "Like what? Are we supposed to give up technology? Go back to living in caves?" "No," Ethan interjected sharply. "Not giving up everything, but showing we understand limits. That we're not just going to keep pushing boundaries because we can." Laura considered this for a moment, then spoke. "Then we start small. We already dismantled Genesis. That was step one. Now we take another step. Bigger one." "What do you have in mind?" Mia asked hesitantly. Laura turned to face the holographic map of Earth, projected in the center of the table. "Earth isn't just gun, it's been displaced. If we want it back, we might need to offer something in return. Something symbolic." "Symbolic how?" Ethan pressed. "By letting go of pride," Laura replied. "For decades, humanity has seen itself as the center of the universe, the dominant species destined to conquer everything. What if we show the Valeth that we don't see ourselves that way anymore, that we're willing to share the galaxy and maybe even lead differently?" The idea hung in the air, heavy with implications. It wasn't just about words. It was about actions. Actions that would require humility, cooperation, and trust. Humanity's survival depended on proving they could be stewards, not rulers of the cosmos. The next day, the crew returned to the alien structure, carrying crates filled with artifacts from Earth. Inside were items representing humanity's achievements and failures. Tools used in early space exploration, fragments of satellites, pieces of art, and recordings of musical symbols of what made humans unique. But alongside these treasures were documents detailing mistakes. Wars fought, ecosystems destroyed, resources exploited. It was a raw, unfiltered portrait of a flawed species trying to grow. As they approached the structure, the hum of energy grew louder, vibrating through their suits. The crystals inside spun faster, casting prismatic beams of light around the chamber. This time, however, the crew didn't hesitate. They placed the crates carefully near the pedestal, arranging them in a circle as an offering. Ethan stepped, forward, his heart pounding. "We brought these to show you who we are," he said aloud, knowing the Valeth could hear him. "It's not just our strengths but our weaknesses too. We've made mistakes. We know that now, and we're learning. Please, give us a chance to do better." For a long moment, nothing happened. The chamber remained eerily still, the spinning crystals casting shadows on the walls. Then, slowly, the ground began to tremble. Light erupted. From the glyphs etched into the walls, illuminating the room in blinding brilliance, shapes formed within the glow-tall, shifting figures that stretched endlessly upward. One of them stepped forward, its presence overwhelming. "You offer truth." The Valeth's voice resonated in their minds. "Yet truth alone does not guarantee wisdom. We're asking for a chance to learn," Ethan insisted, his voice steady, despite the fear coursing through him. "To earn your trust, to prove we can change." The figure paused, studying them intently. Gaze pierced through their defenses, searching for sincerity. Finally, it spoke again. "Your kind will be restored to a degree. Those displaced will return, but under conditions." "What conditions?" Laura asked cautiously. "They will exist within parameters," the Valeth replied cryptically.
"Boundaries."
"Designed to prevent further disruption."
"Technology will."
"Remain limited." "Expansion will require consent." "Cooperation will replace conquest." "And if we fail?" Ethan asked quietly. "Failure will result in permanence," the Valeth declared. "Balance must be maintained." With that, the light dimmed, and the figures dissolved into nothingness. The chamber returned to its previous state, though the air felt heavier, charged with anticipation. Back aboard the Aurora, the crew exchanged uneasy glances. The Valeth's terms were clear. Humanity wanted Earth back. They would have to live differently. No more unchecked ambition. No more reckless expansion. It was a second chance, but one that came with strings attached. Over the next few days, the crew monitored Earth closely. Slowly, signs of life began to reappear. Cities flickered back to life, their lights glowing softly against the night. People emerged from nowhere, dazed but alive, their memories fragmented. Nature reclaimed its place, blending seamlessly with rebuilt infrastructure. It was as if Earth itself had reset, shedding the scars of humanity's excesses. But the changes weren't just physical, they were societal. Governments implemented strict environmental regulations. Colonies across the galaxy agreed to share resources rather than hoard them. Scientists worked together to develop sustainable technologies, prioritizing longevity over profit. Humanity had been given a fresh start, and for once, they seemed determined to make the most of it. Ethan stood on the observation deck of the Aurora, watching Earth spin below. It looked different, now smaller, humbler, yet somehow stronger. He thought about Alex, whose sacrifice had paved the way for this fragile future. Though Alex was gone, his legacy lived on in every decision humanity made moving forward. "Did it?" Mia said softly, joining him at the window. "Didn't we?" "For no," Ethan replied, his voice tinged with caution. "But the real test is just beginning. Living within limits isn't easy not for us." Mia nodded, her expression thoughtful. "Do you think we're ready?" "I hope so," Ethan admitted.
"But."
"Because failure isn't an option this time." As the stars shone down on a planet reborn, Ethan couldn't help but wonder if humanity had truly learned its lesson, or if silence would one day fall again. The days that followed Earth's partial restoration were filled with cautious optimism. The planet was alive again, but it wasn't the same as before. Cities buzzed with activity, yet their skylines were humbler, their streets quieter. People moved through their lives with a sense of purpose tinged with uncertainty. They remembered fragments of what had happened, the sudden disappearance, the void, but most couldn't recall specifics. It was as if the Valeth had erased certain memories, leaving only enough to remind humanity of its fragility. Ethan Cole returned to Eridanus Prime aboard the Aurora, his thoughts heavy despite the relief spreading across the galaxy. He watched Earth from the cockpit window as they departed, its blue-green surface glowing softly under sunlight. For all its beauty, it felt like a fragile jewel, now one misstep away from shattering again. The Valith's warning echoed in his mind, "Failure will result in permanence." Those words haunted him, a reminder that humanity's second chance came with no guarantees. Back on the station, life resumed its usual rhythm, though whispers of Earth's ordeal lingered in every conversation. Traders shared stories over drinks at the cantina, speculating about the Valith and their role as cosmic guardians. Engineers debated whether humanity could truly live within limits, while scientists pored over data collected during the mission, searching for clues about the alien beings who had judged them so harshly. For Ethan, returning to routine work felt strange after everything he'd experienced. His hands still trembled slightly when he handled tools, his mind replaying flashes of Alex dissolving into light. At night, sleep eluded him, plagued by dreams of shifting figures and glowing crystals. Yet amidst the unease, he found himself driven by a new sense of purpose. Humanity had been given a rare opportunity to rebuild not just Earth, but itself, and Ethan wanted to be part of that change. Claire Bennett remained aboard the Aurora for several weeks, analyzing samples brought back from the lunar structure and studying recordings of the Valith's communication. Her findings painted a clearer picture of their nature, or at least as clear as humans could comprehend. The Valith weren't malevolent, nor were they benevolent. They operated on principles beyond human morality, focusing solely on maintaining balance in the universe. To them, civilizations were like wildfires necessary for growth, but dangerous if left unchecked. They see us as children, Claire explained to Ethan during one of their late-night discussions. Not incapable, but inexperienced. Happened to Earth wasn't punishment, it was intervention. It's a way to stop us from burning ourselves out. But do you think they'll ever fully trust us? Ethan asked. Leaning against the edge of her workstation, Claire hesitated, her fingers pausing over her tablet. I don't know. Trust isn't something they seem to value. Balance is. If we stay within our boundaries, maybe they'll leave us alone. But if we push too far again, ... She didn't need to finish the sentence. Ethan understood. The Valith wouldn't hesitate to act again if humanity crossed another line. Their judgment would be swift and final. As news of Earth's restoration spread, colonies throughout the galaxy began adopting changes inspired by the lessons learned. Trade agreements shifted toward sustainability, prioritizing resource sharing over competition. Governments implemented stricter regulations on technological development, ensuring innovations aligned with ethical standards. Even cultural attitudes evolved, emphasizing cooperation over conquest. For the first time in centuries, humanity seemed united not by ambition, but by survival. Ethan became an advocate for these reforms, traveling between colonies to share his experiences and encourage collaboration. He spoke candidly about the Valith, describing them not as enemies, but as reminders of humanity's place in the cosmos. His words resonated with many, especially younger generations eager to shape a better future. Slowly, a movement emerged, one rooted in humility rather than hubris. Mia Torres joined him on some of these trips, using her medical expertise to address health disparities in underserved regions. Together, they worked to heal wounds both physical and societal, fostering connections between communities long divided by greed and fear. Ryan Fletcher, once skeptical of such ideals, surprised everyone by embracing the cause. Transported supplies and personnel to remote settlements, proving that even those resistant to change could adapt. Laura Hayes, meanwhile, continued leading missions aboard the Aurora, monitoring Earth's progress and maintaining open lines of communication with other species. She believed transparency was key to earning trust not just from the Valith, but from allies across the stars. Under her guidance, humanity took tentative steps toward becoming a responsible member of the galactic community. Despite these efforts, doubts lingered. Not everyone welcomed the changes. Some saw the Valith's intervention as an insult to human ingenuity, arguing that limitations stifled progress. Others dismissed the incident altogether, claiming it was exaggerated or fabricated. Tensions simmered beneath the surface, threatening to boil over if pushed too far. Ethan encountered resistance firsthand. During a visit to a mining colony on the edge of known space, The colony relied heavily on resource extraction, and its leaders resented new restrictions limiting their operations. When Ethan tried to explain the importance of sustainability, they accused him of undermining their livelihoods. "You think we should just roll over and play nice because some aliens told us to?" One man snapped, his face red with anger. "We built this colony with our own hands. We're not giving it up for anyone, not even gods." Ethan met his gaze steadily. "This isn't about rolling over, it's about surviving. If we don't change, we'll lose everything, including colonies like this one." The argument ended without resolution, but it left Ethan shaken. He realized how fragile the new order was, how easily old habits could resurface. Change required more than policies, it demanded conviction. And conviction wasn't something that could be forced. Months passed, and Earth settled into its new reality. Nature flourished alongside rebuilt cities, creating a harmonious blend of civilization and wilderness. People celebrated festivals, honoring resilience and renewal, their traditions infused with gratitude for a second chance. Yet the scars of the past remained visible in abandoned ruins and stories passed down, in the quiet determination etched into faces young and old. One evening, Ethan stood on a hill overlooking New York City, now transformed into a model of sustainable urban design. Wind turbines spun lazily in the distance, their blades catching the fading sunlight. Below, children played in parks, reclaimed by greenery, their laughter echoing through the air. It was peaceful as stark contrast to the chaos he'd witnessed. Months earlier, behind him, Claire approached, carrying a small device she'd been working on. "Thought you might want to see this," she said, handing it to him. Ethan examined the device curiously. It resembled a crystal, smooth and translucent, glowing faintly in his palm. "What is it?" "It's a prototype," Claire explained. "A way to monitor energy usage in real time. If we can distribute these widely, we might prevent another Genesis-level disaster." Ethan smiled faintly, turning the crystal over in his hand. "It's beautiful," he said, "and practical. Isn't that what we need right now?" Claire replied. "Beauty and practicality working together?" Ethan nodded, gazing out at the horizon. The sun dipped below the skyline, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. For all its challenges, humanity had taken a step forward, small, uncertain. Step, but a step nonetheless. The road ahead would be difficult, fraught with obstacles and sacrifices. But for the first time, Ethan felt hopeful, as the stars emerged one by one. Twinkling faintly in the twilight, he whispered a silent promise. To Alex, to Earth, and to the galaxy watching silently from afar. Whatever came next, humanity would face it together.